teachers who make students wash their plates, teachers who think it's a right to slap the student, teachers who rip the heart out of the student and use abusive words. When teachers become abusive, they set models for students. They are telling the future generation it's okay to be abusive, it's okay to be unaccountable. At Ignis, we always tell people one thing: you do not touch a student. Why I say do not touch a student? Your job is being a teacher. On this day, I would like to ask this question about the teacher's divine. We have the saying that teacher is equivalent to God, or teacher is avatar of God, and things like that. So it's in this context that we need to reflect on the impact teachers have on our individual lives. All of us have had these teachers who have touched our life miraculously, who have transformed our life, the way we think, the way we have shaped, and the way we look at the world. Some people shape your careers and things like that. All of us have had memories of them. I have had quite a few teachers who touched my life. For example, Father Kurula. Father Kurula was a Jesuit priest who was the principal of the school I studied in. He changed the way I looked at education overall. He introduced us to ideas like research. When I grew up in a village where I had no idea what it was like. Then I have Dr. Pramesh Ratnagar, who was my mentor, who I worked with him in Delhi. And every day, the kind of joy he brings to class, and every day on the way to the college, he would ask me this question: what shall we do new today? And then I met Lance in Miller Center, Santa Clara University, and who in his own ways helps me. And he has been running the social enterprise, the South Asia Leadership Circle, for the last 5 years. And I think nobody has ever done that. And it's his charm and the way he commits himself that has made it. We all had these good teachers who have shaped our life. Sometimes they console us. Sometimes, they show us respect at the most vulnerable time, especially when we are growing up. That little respect as an individual makes a lot of meaning and difference to our life. And their impact lasts a long time. Like, for example, I don't think I would have become a teacher that I am, without the influence of any three of these people. Father Kurula, who inspired me what it is to respect students. Professor Pramesh Ratnagar, who inspired me with this question of what can I do today, the kind of innovation that we bring into the class. Or Lance, who who connects with people and who brings joy to every session that he does. And without these people, they're lost. You can all ask yourself, that person who touched your life. I'm sure all of us have one or two people in our life, and you think of the name and you smile. I had great people in Andhra Loyola College and two people in Chennai Loyola, and Dr. Pramesh, Dr. Prasad in JNU, quite a few. I would talk about these teachers in another video, but reflect on the impact those teachers created on your life. They set the values, they set the goals, they made you. They are huge. They were an integral part of what we eventually turn up to be. On the other side, we need to look at those who claim divinity. When we say Guru Deva Bhava, we need to ask this question: are teachers gods? The cases of good teachers I spoke about, the respect and the kind of aura that we create around them, or the kind of divinity we attribute to them, happened later. We feel them in everyday life. It's not something they claim. The problem with making gods out of teachers, or teachers claiming to be gods, is that gods are not accountable. When a god, as a god, I am not answerable to. I created you. That's how it is. You are under me. And when you interact with God, you're subservient. I give you boons. You don't have any rights. It's my benevolence. It's not my responsibility. So that is the problem. They sit high above us and look down upon us. So this is where we need to question the idea of Guru Deva Bhava. In Indian context, we need to reflect deeply how our modern education system has been shaped by two main influences. One, that colonial British man with a stick. I heard stories about those white men who beat up the hell out of students, which even today continues. And then that colonial master, the colonial upper caste master. You have seen that in the stories of Dr. Ambedkar and things like that, who discriminate people. So these two things to be put together, you have the image of that divine teacher, the teacher who claims divinity in Indian classrooms. They had sinister hands. I mean, almost every school that we go through, you come across them. Teachers who make students wash their plates. Teachers who think it's a right to slap the student. Teachers who rip the heart out of the student and use abusive words. Most of the time we go to schools, we come across people like this. I remember one of the worst experience in my life was, my first teaching experience in a major college in Bangalore. Most of the teachers there aspired to be, they believed they were ringmasters. I mean, they were holding a whip in their class, in their hand. Yeah. Of course, there were students, 80 students, and they would demand respect. Even in JNU, there were people who had that kind of belief that they were divine, and students obliged them. They would actually carry their bags with them. In school, students go out and get canes for these teachers to please them. And these ringmasters, they ruin our lives. Sometimes there are, they're sinister not because they're cruel. Sometimes they're sinister because for them, they happen to be in this job. So, the ringmasters ruin our life in their own way. And when we look at all these factors, we should understand that teaching is a profession. It is a profession like any other profession. You have deliverables. You need to teach them. You need to prepare them to see the future. You need to imbibe skills in the students. So have a clarity on what skills are you bringing in? What are you delivering at the end of the year? What are you expecting the students to achieve at the end of the year? Have that impact, worked out. I always ask teachers one question. Before you enter the class, what do you ask yourself? Most of the time people say, am I prepared? What am I going to teach today? No. How is this 1 hour going to be impactful in the life of the students? Is it useful for them? If you don't, then you would have those, either this ringmasters or absolutely useless, boring teachers who just spend their time. They don't know what they're doing. I remember when I was in Pondicherry University, there was this professor who used to teach, and this guy was so boring. He would actually write 2, 3 jokes because somebody told him start the class with a joke, and he would read this terrible jokes, and then he would look up and laugh himself, and then he would have to interpret it for us so that we would understand it. My brother, I have stories about this from people very close to me. Very close friend of mine. He was a topper in math all through his school, and when he reached class 1, class 11, he started failing because nobody cared. Nobody looked at it. Probably they had prejudices against him. Probably they had biases against him. Probably, and then there was this computer teacher who did not bother. And the result of that, he failed. And the new teacher who joined inspired him, and he bloomed again. And he bloomed so well that he actually started doing really well in his graduation and his post-graduation. And he's quite a successful engineer today. So that is the kind of impact that we want to create. Most of the time in colleges, attendance is a punishment. You have to have 80% attendance, otherwise I will not allow you to sit in my exam. Ask yourself this question: why is it that students do not want to be in your class? because they have better place to be than your class. I have worked with some really good teachers, and one of them I should mention was a lady called Vasudha, who I worked with. Batch after batch, her classes had 90-95% attendance overall. Students wouldn't miss a class. She was not what do you call it, very bubbly or anything, but probably the care, probably she was relevant for them. Probably, I don't know. Students loved her classes so much, they found value in it. Now it's time we banned this idea of attendance and as a condition for exams. The other thing, which in India especially people misuse, is the idea of internal assessment. I have seen teachers warning students saying that, okay, have fun, misbehave. I'll show you in the internal assessment. In most of the cases, the internal assessment is also, even the final exams and the external evaluation is also, influenced by these people. What we need is objectivity. What we need is people with heart, people who work. And respect is to be earned. How do we earn respect? Being prepared, being up to date. Very important, being respectful. More than the teacher expecting respectful student, the teacher ought to be respectful to his or her student. Even more important, accepting your mistakes. Very few teachers think that they need to apologize when they make mistakes or when they're not sure. I have had people who would cover up their mistakes by yelling at the students and saying that I know better, who are you to teach me? Asking permission when you move away from a topic, or even the words we use in the class, and being accountable. How often do students come to you and ask you whether they understood it, or whether they question your use of time or language? At Ignis, we always tell people one thing: you do not touch a student. You do not, why I say do not touch a student. Your job is being a teacher. And this is something which we should understand. Abuse happens in many ways. It could be physical, it could be verbal. It's a violation of all these things that we are talking about here. When we did a survey among adolescent girls, we asked them, who do they face abuse from mostly? Most of them said, yeah, they spoke about physical violence and verbal violence. When it came to sexual abuse, they were okay with their language teachers. Many complaints were raised about teachers who taught maths and science, nothing to do with math or science, but it was about students going close to the students, to these teachers, to clarify the doubts, and people who exploited that. What they create are monsters. When teachers become abusive, they set models for students. They are telling the future generation, it's okay to be abusive, it's okay to be unaccountable. They create horrible spouses. They create people who are bullies in college. They create those arrogant bureaucrats who expect people to open the door of the car for them, or who carry their bag as though it's a privilege. Go and stand outside any Indian government office. You find those administrative officers who walk with extreme arrogance. As I've seen a civil servant who actually walked into the room, stood there till everybody stood and paid attention to him. As though like it's as though like they're gods, and they are the most important thing in there. What we need are teachers who can instill respect and respect students. Have a great, I hope all of us learn to, ask questions to our teachers. And as teachers, all of us learn to respect our students.